There is a quiet shift happening in cyber risk right now, and many organizations are sensing it before they can really fully explain it. So, if you are seeing recovering take longer, costs increasing, teams staying involved in the incident response mode well past containment, but yet at the same time, nothing really major has happened. No headlines, no breach notifications, no board level crisis call. If this sounds familiar, then this episode is for you, because in this episode, I'm going to explain why the current threat mix is driving higher recovery costs even when incidents stay out of the public eye, and why this is different from what we were dealing with a year ago. And I'm going to talk about why CISOs need a better way to explain this reality to executives and boards. Before I go any further, I want to ask you three questions. First, are you seeing incidents that technically get contained but still take weeks or months to fully close? Number two, are you hearing your peers talking about rising response and recovery efforts even when nothing becomes reportable or public? And number three, have you personally felt that the cost of recovery is rising faster than leadership's expectations without any obvious headline or event to point to? If any of those resonate, you're not imagining it. The threat environment has changed, and it has changed in a way that quietly accelerates the recovery costs. So, a year ago, many incidents were still relatively bounded. A phishing email led to credential compromise. Malware was detected. Systems were cleaned, and the incident ended. But that's no longer the dominant pattern. Today, the threat mix looks very different. Ransomware operators are no longer just encrypting systems. They are exfiltrating data, disabling backups, abusing identity systems, and deliberately creating uncertainty about how far they have gotten into the system. State-aligned actors are operating quietly. They are prioritizing persistence and intelligence collection over disruption, which means environments have to be invested more deeply before confidence can be restored. Hacktivist activity has increased background noise, forcing teams to chase signals that may or may not be materially damaging, but still consume time and resources. And third-party and supply chain compromises are introducing risk through the vendors, through identity providers and software platforms that organizations do not fully control. Individually, each of these threats is manageable, but together, they fundamentally change the recovery economics, because recovery is no longer about cleaning up what broke. It is about providing or proving rather what did not happen. And that proof is expensive. It requires deeper forensics work. It extends identity and resets access reviews. It delays system validations. It increases legal, compliance, and audit efforts. And it keeps teams in a heightened response posture far longer than leadership is expecting. And this is why recovery costs are rising even when incidents never become public. And this is where CISOs often struggle to explain what is happening, because it's not easy to identify and explain. Executives tend to associate cost with visibility. If there was no breach notification, no press coverage, no regulatory involvement, then the assumption is that the incident was inexpensive. That assumption is no longer true. The costs have shifted inward. It is showing up in extended recovery times, delayed projects, emergency consulting spends, overtime, controlled re-engineering, and operational drag that persists long after containment. This is exactly why I put so much emphasis on financial impact estimates grounded in real data. When I give you recovery cost and impact ranges, these aren't ballpark guesses. They are derived from public documented incidents, insurance disclosures, regulatory filings, litigation records, and industry-specific reporting. And importantly, those estimates exist for every major industry. They exist for financial services, healthcare, manufacturing, retail, professional services, technology. So unless your organization is structurally and operationally substantially different from everyone else in your industry, these estimates represent you. Not because your controls are identical, but because your dependencies, the regulatory exposure, staffing constraints, and operational realities are similar. This data is increasingly powerful in conversations with executives and boards. It allows you to say, this is not theoretical. This is what recovery looks like now for organizations like ours. And that is a powerful statement. And I want to pause on that for just a moment. And I want you to ask yourself, how hard would it be for your organization to generate those recovery cost figures internally? Are you actually capturing the full cost of response, investigation, validation, delayed recovery today? Or are those costs fragmented across IT and security and legal and compliance and operations without a single consolidated view? Most organizations cannot answer that clearly, which is exactly why industry-level financial estimates are so valuable. They fill a visibility gap that almost no organization has closed internally. From a board perspective, this reframes the conversation. Cyber risk is no longer just about breach probability. It is about recovery friction. It is about how long the organization operates with that level of uncertainty. It is about how often or how much effort it takes to restore confidence in the systems, in the data, in the identity. Those are business costs, not technical ones. For CISOs, this changes what success looks like. Success is no longer just preventing the incident or keeping them out of the news. Success is reducing the duration and the depth of recovery when incidents inevitably occur. And that means preparing leadership for a different reality. A reality where contained doesn't mean cheap. One where recovery is a strategic capability, not a cleanup task. One where resilience is measured in time, confidence, financial impact, not just detection and response metrics. This is also why the current threat mix feels heavier than it did a year ago. Not because every incident is worse, but because every incident requires more work to truly close, to get that confidence back. And that's the work that costs money. So for CISOs, the takeaway is clear. You need to help executives and boards understand that the absence of headlines does not equal the absence of impact to them. You need to shift reporting from what was blocked to what had to be proven safe before you could continue. You need to shift it from what did not happen to what had to be validated, and from what we recovered to here is what recovery actually required. For executives and boards, that takeaway is equally important. If you want fewer surprises, fewer emergency budget requests, and fewer stalled initiatives, you have to understand how recovery economics have changed. Cyber risk today is quieter, deeper and more expensive to resolve than it was a year ago. And ignoring that because incidents stay out of the news is one of the fastest ways to fall behind. And this is not about fear, it's about reality, it's about realism. The ground has shifted, and CISOs who can explain that shift using real data and industry-specific financial impacts will be far more effective than those who only report on tools, alerts, and counts. And that is why this matters. And that is why this conversation needs to happen now. I hope you enjoyed this. If you do, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next episode.